Welcome to the Bounty Zero X podcast. I'm your host, Angelo Adam, founder and CEO of Bounty Zero X. Bounty Zero X is a decentralized bounty hunting network powered by the BNTY token. Today is September 12th, 2018, and my guest on the show is Kwok Lee, co-founder and managing director of QuantaChain. QuantaChain is a platform and blockchain, trust wallet, and token model with near real-time financial exchange that matches user experience of a centralized exchange with reference to speed and usability. Kwok, as the co-founder, has a background as an executive at Tango and Jiffy Cat, formerly at eBay, PayPal, IBD, and IBM, and distributed systems researcher. He's a CS degree, has received a CS degree from ASU, and is also a patent holder. Kwok, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Angelo. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So we're excited to hear about QuantaChain. It's a very exciting project because it's working on improving the user experience, among other things, for decentralized exchanges. And so to that end, it's developing a blockchain with some pretty impressive performance statistics and a number of other infrastructure products to help it accomplish its overall goal of improving user experience in the blockchain space. So maybe you can just give me a brief overview of the project based off of what we've covered so far.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. So a little bit background on this. I think we all a little bit familiar with DEX, and they're generally a little bit slow, and the biggest problem with them are access to liquidity. So on one hand, you have centralized exchanges that charging very large fees, which means listing fees that is, and that's hindering a lot of projects from accessing liquidity. On the other hand, DEX operate in silos. So if you have Ethereum DEX, that you can only trade ERC20. If you have Neo DEX, you can only trade within that. And the next problem is these DEX, they all run on off-chain order book, which means the liquidity is even more fragmented because nobody trusts each other to run the order book. So that kind of leads to the technology we're developing, which is to really get that speed. We need a full flexibility to be able to control and build our own blockchain called QuantaChain. And we're building an on-chain order book that can settle and match order in less than 1 second, and capable of handling in the millions of transactions. So this is really an ambitious plan, but I think what we're doing is we're enabling access to liquidity across multiple blockchains and do that completely on-chain and giving access to everyone equally and fairly without any listing fee.
So before we get into all of the details about how the platform works and the different components, I'd like to always hear a little bit about the team and how the idea was conceived and how it got started and how you put the team together. So when did you guys start working on the project?
Yeah, so this is a long story, actually. I actually started getting in cryptocurrency early last year as a miner, and I realized it was a lot of work, and I started trading, and I realized the experience was pretty bad. And at the time, this is before Binance, and we saw a lot of hacks. And I started digging, why is trading happening on centralized database when the whole idea of blockchain is really about us having custody of our own tokens or our own coins? But when we do trading, we have to deposit that to a centralized party who has our tokens, who has our keys. And I thought this was kind of counterintuitive of what the spirit of blockchain is really about. So I started kind of reading every paper about the space, and I realized that there was no good solutions out there. And I started consulting my friends at Google and at Netflix who have experience with distributed experience. So we didn't form the team until early this year, which is still a long time ago. So we formed around January and December of early this year. And, I met with Alfonso, and Alfonso is my co-founder. He comes from the user experience and design point of view, and we share this kind of user experience problem, both on the technology and the usability side. We start forming a team around this. We brought in a guy my friend from Netflix. He was in cloud infrastructure. We brought in guys from Google's. My experience with PayPal, so I'm pretty familiar with this. We brought in another guy from ad tech. We brought another guy from data. He was a former data scientist at Pure Storage. So we started forming a pretty great team to really tackle this problem.
And how did you and Afonso meet originally? How did you guys meet each other?
Well, I think we were both exploring this crypto space. Afonso has been involved with cryptocurrency for a while, many years, and he was very active trading early last year, and so that's kind of where we got connected with our kind of passion in the crypto space toward the end of last year, and we both were convinced that we could attack this problem.
So is everyone on your team now working full-time on this project?
So we have 4 full-time members. We have 3 part-time, and we're working based out of Santa Clara here.
So when you approached the employees or the hires, you and Afonso, what was their reaction and what were their concerns, and were they excited about it? And what type of feedback did you get from people when you started sharing your idea with them?
I think there was an overwhelming of excitement and interest in this space. And as you know, crypto is not really in large companies. A large company they don't really want to be associated with, but I think but it's hitting so much traction that people are interested. I mean, I can tell you, one of my team member, Sergey, I mean, he has a big exit from, undisclosed company. Let's say he's doing well, right? So, and a lot of the other guys are doing well too. And they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the technology and the curiosity to be able to code something in the blockchain. So that for me was my job. I mean, in terms of what I have to do to inspire, it's not that much work.
So you pitched the idea to them and they were excited about it, especially about the technical challenge involved with this.
Yeah, and to go to a little bit more specific, Min was working on cloud infrastructure. So he worked on Cassandra, right, which is a distributed database. And he built his own distributed database. And it kind of clicked for us that, wow, like all this stuff about consensus, like we already have those consensus in distributed system for many, many years. If you're not familiar with Cassandra, it's the database that Facebook built, and it was adopted at Netflix, and they use widely to store, terabytes of data, completely distributed manner. The only exception is it runs in a permission database, whereas Ethereum and Bitcoin, they run an unpermissioned database, like a open, unpermissioned kind of ecosystem. So we kind of start seeing these patterns that we've been dealing with for a long time. And from my experience, having worked at PayPal, we deal with very similar problems when it comes to security and it comes to settlement and et cetera.
So QuantaChain's infrastructure is comprised of the blockchain. So it's a dual ledger Byzantine fault tolerance consensus mechanism. It has, as you alluded to before, a on-chain order book, which is a sub 200 millisecond response time. And then there is the token ledger, which is the account system and the trading system, which manages the trades, which is also on-chain. So you have this dual ledger system. Is that unique? Or is there any other projects that have also a dual? Because that's the first time I've heard of that.
Oh yeah, I think that's our key innovation. If you look at projects like 0x, Bancor and Kyber, these projects, they concluded that they cannot do on-chain order book. So you look at 0x, right on the white paper, it'll say off-chain order book with on-chain settlement. So, I mean, this is just the reality of what the constraint in regards to the current technology and infrastructure today. So we took a totally different approach on this. So it's like, why don't we build a separate blockchain that the only thing it does well, which is order book matching. So that's your top layer, which processes the order. Once the order that does get matched, it flushes out to a secondary blockchain that actually does the settlement. So by doing that, we can reduce the speed. We can make the order book matching much faster and a much higher throughput.
And what is the mechanism for determining the
consensus?
Yeah. So what is the consensus mechanism? Is it a staking mechanism, a GPU, or what is the use?
So the staking is Byzantine fault tolerant basis, this is probably the best consensus when it comes to scale and speed.
And what other blockchains are using this type of Byzantine fault tolerance consensus mechanism currently?
Well, when you look at the coin market cap table, you would see XRP and Stellar being the top player in this space. And I think especially in this market cycle, you're starting to see cost as a factor when it comes to how well the blockchain is performing. You could see Stellar, and our XRP is, a little bit more stable than other blockchains because it's, there's the cost of running is very low.
And Stellar has, I think, like a 5 millisecond or a 5 second block time.
Yeah, correct. So 5 second.
Yeah. And what is Ripple's block time, or XRP? What is their block time?
I think it's relatively the same to Stellar. I don't know the exact number, but we're in the under 1 second time frame.
So is that a technical challenge to reduce the block time from 5 seconds to 1 second?
Yeah, it actually is. I mean, when in a network environment, you have to deal with packet loss, delays, and how you actually operate these nodes in a kind of global fashion. It becomes quite challenging. And we do have more optimization on the application level where we reduce the number of messages getting passed from node to node on the blockchain. Because we're doing the order book, there are also very specific things that we could do to optimize the consensus. So one of the things we're doing is when the message gets passed around, each of the nodes are actually signing this message. So the full once the consensus has been reached, you actually have the signature of every node signing off this block. So it actually gives you like a further confidence about the security of the consensus.
And can anyone on the network run a node, or only certain users allowed to do that?
As of now, we run as a consortium basis with partners. In the future, this form of consortium is called permissions blockchain. We like to open up to a permissionless blockchain in the future. So this is part of us getting more resources and fund for this type of development. But I really truly believe that it's a matter of developing the technology for us to get onto a permissionless order book that could be shared in a global manner for every tokens in the world, and any user can access that.
So tell me a little bit more about the consortium. So it's a closed environment do you have a set number of nodes that you have in mind?
We're set to run about 20 nodes and globally distributed around the world. And it would be completely decentralized within the team in terms of who knows the keys, and also completely decentralized between our partners.
So each node, is it part of the team, or is it just a partner or someone who's part of the network?
It's a combination of both. It's a consortium of people running this blockchains.
Are they required to stake tokens? Are there any requirements that they have to meet in order to join that consortium?
Yeah, one of the most basic requirement is they are transacting on our blockchain. So that means these consortium members have a stake kind of in the game. Basically, they have an incentive to keep the blockchain healthy and running well.
And so the consortium-based players, the benefit of having that kind of closed system is what? I'm assuming it makes it easier to reduce the block time and to achieve these higher performance statistic metrics.
Right. Well, it goes both ways. It encourages the blockchain, the nodes to be run in a healthy way by a membership model. And it improves the speed because as a consortium, we can dictate certain rules about what kind of network, what kind of performance it should be run under, like whether it should be on it has to be run in, say, AWS. The latency must be within this range so we can maintain the speed and scalability of that. of the blockchain.
Is it the case that the more nodes you have, the more performance decline there is? You need to propagate all the information to all the nodes on the network?
Right. So there is always a trade-off between the number of nodes versus the latency and the speed, because if you're trying to get consensus across, say, a server in, let's say, in Congo, I don't know, where the network is very bad, you can't wait around for if half your nodes are somewhere in the network is bad. And being in a permissionless system, you can't control that unless you can't control that. So that's why you're seeing block timing in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, so forth to kind of accommodate for that latency. But when you're running in an enterprise grade level, you really need to be able to control what the network latency is to be able to reduce that latency. And as the number of nodes increases, that actually increases the number of messages, increasing the wait time and so forth. And also creating network bottlenecks as well. So let's say you're one node and you're waiting for 1,000 server to get consensus. Well, you're getting a 1,000 message every second.
Can you tell me about the difference between the Byzantine fault tolerance and then this variant of Byzantine fault tolerance called the Federated Byzantine Agreement, and how you guys incorporate that into your system architecture?
The notion of federated means that you're federating the trust you're delegating the trust to an organization. So an example is, let's say we have a partner that runs a DEX and they need to be accessed multiple nodes, and they have their own. So they would run a set of nodes, but we would delegate our trust on only one of their server. Then we would delegate our trust to another server. So the real world kind of similarity is like if you trust two exchanges agreeing on the price, then you must trust that your transaction was matched properly and settled properly. So this is a good segue into what the infrastructure is really about. I mean, like what we're building is a Quanta chain infrastructure that actually enables anyone to build DEX on top of infrastructure. So anyone can access the API. They can leverage the order book and also leverage the settlement. We are going to open source our Quanta DEX, which is going to launch toward the end of this year. We're going to open source that. So anyone can just launch their exchange and be able to run that. And as part of running on the Quanta chain, they'll be able to receive percentage of that transaction feedback back to their accounts. So basically what we're trying to do, so the idea is just it's more than one exchange. Is the reason why we're focusing on the Quanta chain is we're trying to solve liquidity broadly for different participants.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that, because that's a really interesting use case. So this is in a way similar to other like decentralized exchange protocols like 0x, and I think there's maybe a couple others. So basically anyone can launch a decentralized exchange using the Quanta chain protocol. Then these different exchanges would be competing against each other on various business or marketing metrics and building a community around that individual exchange.
Exactly. And this blockchain can match order under a second and at very high throughput. And the other thing that it's very unique, it's not an island of liquidity. Let's say you're in 0x, you can only trade within a certain set of order books and a certain set of, and within Ethereum. And as we're kind of seeing, I mean, seeing that Ethereum is going through some challenges, and there are many blockchains are coming out, and it's very hard to predict what is the state of the world in the future. But so where Quanta Chain is positioned is we're positioned as an order book that's connected to every blockchain in the ecosystem. So one of our core technology is the cross-chain wallet or architecture. What it is really is a decentralized wallet that's being managed by the blockchain, and it enables the movement of tokens from another blockchain into the Quanta blockchain. And when you move that token, basically we issue you the same amount of token on the Quanta chain. Then from the Quanta chain, you can trade between any assets on any blockchain.
There's another interesting component of the cross-blockchain component, which you mentioned. So then there's also the crypto ETF component, where you can represent a basket of crypto pairs and essentially trade an ETF of a basket of different currencies. So, I mean, there are a lot of really interesting and unique features that you guys are preparing to launch. That one, and then
exactly. So trading from one asset to another asset across any number of assets, that's the biggest use case is there. Then once you have a lot of assets, or in other words, liquidity, different tokens. Now you can create assets. Not really us, but developers can develop more like an index fund, right? So you can distribute their risk across different tokens. Let's say you could create, say, the top 50 ETF, crypto ETF on a blockchain. Well, you can do that on the Quanta blockchain because we'll have access to all those tokens being traded and also deposited onto the Quanta blockchain.
Yeah, so an ETF, maybe we can just dig into that and then I also want to talk about how you can support this liquidity for pairs that aren't actually traded against each other. So if there are no orders for, let's say, one token versus another token, you can make these jumps from one token to another until you are able to trade against that other token. So that's also something I want to talk about. But before we get to that, let's maybe talk about the ETF and how this works on a technical level. So what exactly is going on when a user, I guess if I am on the decentralized exchange, I can choose, let's say, a basket of cryptocurrencies of, like, let's say it's top 10 cryptocurrencies. And I purchase, let's say, 10 tokens or some amount of tokens of that basket. Explain a little bit more detail what exactly is going on there with respect to the tokens that I'm purchasing and how they are they then redeemable for each of those basket of tokens that makes it up? Explain a little bit how that works and how that can be achieved in a decentralized manner.
It can be done in multiple ways. I think the simplest approach is the parallel between the stock, how it's done in stock. So usually is issued as a new asset, and that asset is backed by what it's advertised to back. For example, the top 50. The difference is on a blockchain, you can actually see a developer can develop a new assets as a smart contract, and every time. So let's say there's more demand for that ETF crypto assets. That means the smart contract needs to buy more. So it has a one-to-one balance, what's called like a net asset value of the assets. So because it's on the Quanta chain, it can access to liquidity to actually rebalance that asset, right? And being on a blockchain and on a smart contract, anyone can read that smart contract. So you have the full transparency with not only how it works, but what are the actual asset that's backed. So in terms of how the interaction from the user point of view is a developer would build that smart contract to make that work. And that would be an asset that's accessible on the Quanta chain. And you would be able to buy that I guess, proxy crypto ETF on the Quanta chain.
Okay. So if I'm a user, let's just look at it from the perspective of like an end user who is going to use the platform. So they go and they visit the website, they deposit tokens. So there's the cross-chain wallet, and a user would deposit their tokens into the cross-chain wallet, and then Quanta Chain would issue credit tokens into their Quanta wallet. And then once that token is issued on the Quanta wallet, so is that how you enable like the cross-chain trading? Can you talk a little bit about that? How like the tokens, a user deposits tokens and then are credited with a new different token?
Yeah. So from the user experience, that's exactly how it works. We would issue an address and you would deposit that and we'll credit you on the blockchain. What's happening underneath is the blockchain itself, each of the node on the blockchain has to verify that the token, the crypto asset has was confirmed on the blockchain, and each of those nodes would have to reach consensus to be able to issue you those credit, right? And once you have that credit on the blockchain, it will look like as if it's an ERC20, a new ERC20 token, but that's not what we call it. We just call it as a Quanta token. And so you have this Quanta, say, Ethereum token on the blockchain. Then with that asset, you can trade against any other asset, including the ETF asset that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so that's like a similar, because I remember like with the Maker DAI and some of the 0x protocol exchanges that I've used, they have like the concept of wrapped ETH, like WETH. Is that like a similar type of like framework? And what are the differences between that?
It's different. So there is a notions of a wrap ETH, which I think it's kind of silly because you're already on Ethereum, but you have to wrap your Ethereum to be able to trade your Ethereum on an Ethereum platform. There is a wrap. I'm not familiar with any wrap, say BTC on Ethereum platform per se. So in the 0x case, that's just more or less to make the 0x contract work. For us, what's actually happening is there is specific logic and code consensus logic that's built into the blockchain to make this issuance possible. And basically, it works more or less like an escrow. Or maybe another example is like, let's say you go to a casino and you would go to a clerk and you would trade your US dollar and you get the casino chips. And with the casino chip, you would go trade, play whatever game you want. That doesn't matter. You can stay there for 2 days or 2 hours. Once you're done, you can exchange those coins back, and you can bring it back as US dollar. So for us, it's the same way. So you can bring it in, and you can also get it back out. And we guarantee that it's done completely in a decentralized manner with any blockchain.
So there are tokens on the Quanta chain that are. The token symbol for the Quanta tokens are the QDEX tokens. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the QDEX token, a little bit about the properties of it, and just a quick overview of the token's role on the platform.
Yeah, so QDEX is the native tokens of the blockchain. Then all the tokens, additional tokens that get deposited, will be issued as new tokens. The QDEX tokens operate in several ways. One is to incentivize running the Quanta nodes. So the blockchain would pay it in QDEX to anyone running the nodes. The second one is to incentivize liquidity on the platform. So if the user is trading, we would be giving a little bit of rebate to the user making trades on the platform. And the third one is it's used to build an ecosystem fund. So we would use the QDEX to fund projects that improve the ecosystem. For example, a Quanta wallet, for example, a Chrome wallet, for example, building apps, building dApps, building SDK, and it also ranges to marketing as well. And the remaining tokens are distributed to raise funds to build the technology, and also and a small piece to the team.
So the QDEX tokens for paying gas fees, and so is the concept of gas on the Quanta chain similar to the concept of gas on the Ethereum network? So basically, whenever a transaction is written to the blockchain.
Yes. So it's similar and it's also different. So similar in the fact that you would need to pay some, and typically this has to happen because you want to build a blockchain that kind of take the incentive away from user spamming the blockchain. So if they start spamming millions of transactions, it becomes less economical no matter what the fee is. Where it's different is the fee, because we're BFT based, the fee is almost zero. So we would be charging in the six decimal place of what a QDEX normally would cost.
So the QDEX is used for both of the blockchains, the order book and also the transaction record.
Yes, it's only paid once
for each transaction. So does it cost to place an order?
Yes, it does. Very minimal. Like I said, it's in the 6 decimal of what a QDEX is.
So the fees will be very, very low. Would you think, would this in theory support like high frequency trading or any type of like high volume type of low latency trading? Because the goal is, sub 250 millisecond order book and then sub second transaction time. Is that enough for, I know it's not enough for like, extremely high performance trading on stock markets, but compared to centralized crypto exchanges, how does it compare?
This definitely takes DEX to the next level. Today DEX runs at 14 seconds block time and around that. If you're on NEO, it's 21 second block time. So moving down to 1 second, it actually opens a lot of opportunity to be able to create liquidity. And I think liquidity generally is good for the user, be able to get access or to liquidate. We talked to several hedge funds, crypto hedge funds and OTC, and also traders in general, that they're fairly excited about this new kind of DEX where they're not able to do today. They're able to do things that they're not able to do today. So latency, right? Latency is always kind of discourages traders to come in, because in that 15 seconds, if you cannot cancel your order or you cannot replace your order and something changes in the market, there's a lot of things that could go wrong from a trader perspective.
So where do you see the overall exchange ecosystem heading in the next few years? So we currently have, a few large centralized exchanges that have a significant amount of trading volume. And those exchanges compete against one another on the basis of decreased fees that they charge their users. And many of them have been incorporating a token model, which rewards users in a variety of ways, either by reduced fees or some other mechanisms. And they compete amongst each other on that basis of reduced fees, and also on liquidity, on the exchanges with the most liquidity, the best tokens are the most successful. And so that has created this arms race of which exchanges have the most volume, whether that's legitimate volume or not. And then alongside that, tokens, so the other side of the equation, the companies who issued tokens and are listed on the exchanges are seeking to increase the liquidity of their own tokens, either through market making or other mechanisms to increase interest in marketing. So you have like these two sides of the equation, from the coin side and then from the exchange side. So then separate alongside all of that, you have a component of the decentralized exchanges. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you see this picture going forward.
Yes, that's a very good question. I can address all those points. So on the centralized space, I think we're seeing that there's a lot of synthetic trades that happen, synthetic market making happening on the ecosystem. We do know that a lot of this market maker is a requirement as a centralized exchange, and it kind of benefits. It hurts the token, like the token projects, because they have to put the funds out, and it's generally not very beneficial. I think generally market making should be done more of a natural process than just a requirement of a listing fees. And not on top of that, they're charging in the 5 to 15 million fees for the high quality one. You probably saw Vitalik's quote where he says centralized exchange should go to hell because they're putting all these crazy rules, right? So I think centralized exchange so it's catching up to them. I mean, as you're seeing, where we're in a market bear, and really the only liquidity is happening through bots. And that's what kind of driving these centralized exchanges to keep innovating, because they're struggling. On the other hand, the long-term game is it has to be on decentralized. And the only thing that kind of stops it is technology that can bring the speeds and the scale to where we can have a proper exchange market completely on a blockchain. And I think in the future, access to a token getting access to be able to trade it, it's going to open more and more. You could imagine crypto asset could be a sub asset that belongs to a game, and a game could have thousands of assets. And that can completely be done on a blockchain because the cost is so cheap that you can enable all these use cases. And not only that, I think one of the challenges today is there aren't enough financial products available. Like today, you only see long, but you don't really see short, be able to short, or you don't see kind of options. I mean, there are options like BitMEX, but not widely available. So I think that's another huge opportunity where the trader have access to shorts or options that can actually temper the market so it doesn't get so bullish. So there's always good having both sides on the trading, so that it actually kind of calms the market a little bit better.
The margin trading is also another one of those benefits of the centralized exchanges. With margin trading, you can leverage and then you can also short. But with decentralized exchanges, that's been one of the other limitations is that, with a decentralized exchange, there is one that I know of, BZX, formerly B0X, and they're in the process of developing a protocol that runs on the decentralized exchanges, which facilitates a margin trading and shorting type of functionality, which
I think that's where the industry is going. It is for more transparency. I think one of the concerns many people raise with centralized exchanges is the custody of funds and how is the margin being operated. So there's not a lot of it's hard. You don't get on a decentralized blockchain. You get full visibility and full transparency of how that margin is being funded.
So are these financial instruments part of your roadmap, and how are you guys going to incorporate this type of financial instruments into your? Is this some of the features that you guys will be able to support, and how will this be like something external? How will this be incorporated into your guys' roadmap?
So the most fundamental feature we're building right now is to be able to trade from one asset to another. And as I mentioned earlier, there could be different asset types, and those asset types could be different financial product represented as different assets. So it's just a matter of us supporting on the roadmap.
Yeah, because I think that's probably a pretty complex task because I know, BZX has been working on it, and then, in itself, what you guys are working on is a lot of work, and to incorporate some of these other components like the leverage and the margin and options adds just a whole nother layer of complexity to an already pretty difficult and challenging process. So, I mean, from what I see, how far off do you think we are in terms of years? Are we like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What do you think we are in timeline?
So where we are is we're tasked to launch a small beta net in the upcoming weeks that supports purely settlement. Then toward the end of the year, we're going to launch the order book, the cross-chain, and the QuantaDEX. So that's the big milestone where the user can move tokens into the cross-chain, trade that on-chain. Then we would be improving the blockchain in the next coming months for stability, supporting more blockchain to trade. And then we'll be incorporating more financial products toward the end of next year. And so forth.
So will you immediately have like ERC20 or Ethereum blockchain support? And do you have a certain number of blockchains that you'll immediately support, like Stellar, Ripple, and?
Yeah, we'll be basically going down the list of the list by market caps.
So I want to move over. So we're running out of time, and I want to be respectful of your time and cover a couple more things before we end. So we have the QuantaDEX token voting system, which is live now. So users can go onto the QuantaDEX website and vote for tokens that they'd like to see listed on the exchange. So there's like over 500 or something tokens there. But that's just for community members to express interest, because with the DEX, anyone can list any token and without any listing fees. So the days of having to pay a centralized exchange large sums of money to get listed, and presumably would no longer be required. So on the Quanta network, do tokens need to pay in order to be available for trading, or is anyone able to add any token for free?
So the Quanta DEX will initially support Ethereum ERC20 based tokens. So we haven't finalized exactly how we create that user experience in terms of how to access different tokens. But yes, the idea is at the most fundamental level is the Quanta chain will be able to give you access to any token without any listing fee. And if there's another DEX that builds on top of Quanta chain and decides to charge a fee, maybe charge a fee, that's really up to that project. I mean, we're just the infrastructure that enables them to build the DEX. I mean, a DEX could arguably be building a member base, like a private permission based token. Other ones could be like be building like the Robinhood of DEX on the Quanta chain. That's all those options are open.
So, Quoc, we're looking forward to the launch of the platform, and I think it's a really exciting project you're working on that's extremely prescient in the current atmosphere in the blockchain space. You know, it's an extremely useful product and something that is in dire need to be developed. And so we wish you the best of luck and are excited to see the results of your hard work that will be happening in the next months. So you guys are launching at the end of the year the cross-chain wallet and the DEX. So if users and listeners who are listening to the podcast want to learn more about Quanta Chain, how can they hear more and learn more about you, and where can they follow you?
Yes, we're very excited about our upcoming milestones. So please do get follow updates from our team. I would start with quantachain.io. From there, you can get access to our Telegram links and Twitter links and Facebook and Medium posts. I highly encourage you to join our Telegram channel. It's very active. We have over 10,000 people there. And Twitter, same. We have quite a lot of users.
Great. My guest on the show today has been Quoc Lee, co-founder and managing director of Quanta Chain. Thank you for coming on the Bounty Zero X podcast. It's a pleasure having you, and we are looking forward to hearing more about your project in the future.
Thank you, Angelo.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bounty Zero X podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast below. Check out bountyzerox.io, the #1 bounty hunting platform where you can complete work and earn cryptocurrency. Please consult your professional financial investment and tax advisors before making any investment in initial coin offerings. Bounty Zero X does not provide investment or financial advice and does not endorse or recommend investment in any ICOs advertised on the Bounty Zero X podcast or website.